Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm reviewing Star Trek The Motion Picture. Originally released in 1979, Star Trek The Motion Picture was directed by Robert Wise. The movie is set in the 23rd century and set several years after the events of the original Star Trek television series. The plot involves a massive alien cloud of unknown origin heading towards Earth and destroying everything in its path. With the United Federation Starship Enterprise being the only ship in interception range, Admiral James T. Kirk takes command and leads a mission to investigate the intruder before it destroys Earth. After the huge blockbuster success of Star Wars in 1977, movie and TV studios tried to cash in on the new space craze by making large-scale science fiction films. At this point, Star Trek was in the process of being brought back to television with the production of a new TV series named Star Trek Phase 2. With most of the usual cast returning. Scripts were written and sets were built, but Paramount Pictures, who owned the property, decided to turn the project into a big-budget feature film. Robert Wise, the director responsible for classic science fiction films like The Day the Earth Stood Still and The Andromeda Strain, was hired, and the film was given a large, for the time, budget of $15 million. What could possibly go wrong? Well, pretty much everything. The motion picture, or the slow motion picture as some fans would call it, was a very difficult production. With a release date of December 1979 locked in, filming began in August 1978, but the movie had all kinds of production problems, with effects that weren't being finished properly or on time, and the script not being complete and being rewritten on a daily basis. The film barely managed to meet its release date, and the movie itself, while financially successful, was met with a very mixed critical reception. For many years, the motion picture was seen as one of the weaker Star Trek films, often described as overlong, boring, and with very little action. Robert Wise always regretted not having the time to properly edit and fine-tune the movie, and always felt the release version was a rough cut. Over the years, however, the reputation of Star Trek The Motion Picture has grown, particularly after the DVD release of the first Director's Edition in 2001. This version had an all-new sound mix, better editing, and several new scenes that added more character moments and better clarified the story. Many fans prefer this version, but for reasons too technical to go into here, it was never released in high-definition formats and was only available on standard definition DVD. 43 years after its original release, Paramount finally invested the money to fully restore the Director's Edition in 4K resolution, with further adjustments to the film, including new visual effects. I've always liked this film. While much better Star Trek movies have been made since, it's unique in the fact that it's the one Star Trek movie which isn't just a big action adventure. This is a movie that can be compared with classic science fiction films like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There is no villain as such in this movie. Without giving too much away about the plot, the alien cloud is called V'ger, and while it's extremely dangerous, what it wants is to find its creator. The mystery of who V'ger is and where it came from is what forms a large part of the story. Besides the opening sequence where V'ger destroys 3 Klingon ships, this isn't a movie that features huge space battles like you get in Star Wars and some of the later Star Trek movies. It's a very cerebral film, but an absolutely gorgeous movie to look at, and particularly in this 4K restoration. While the movie has been criticised in the past for having very, very long, almost dialogue-free sequences where characters just look at spaceships, Jerry Goldsmith's fantastic score helps keep you interested, and it can't be overstated how much it contributes to the enjoyment of the movie. One particular standout scene early on is where Kirk takes a shuttle over to the Enterprise, and it's 6 minutes of pure cinema as Kirk, and we the audience, gaze in delight at the Starship Enterprise. I would argue that the Enterprise, in this movie at least, is where it's never looked better, and the most beautiful looking spaceship ever designed. The music track that Jerry Goldsmith provides for this scene is simply called The Enterprise, and has been described by Goldsmith as a love theme. Interestingly, Goldsmith's initial version of the music for the sequence was entirely different. When director Robert Wise heard it, he said there was no theme. Goldsmith went back and rewrote the piece, which ended up becoming the famous Star Trek theme. So good, it was reused as the theme music years later for Star Trek The Next Generation. William Shatner plays Captain Kirk, and while several actors have played the role at this point, Shatner is the original and the best. Here, he was returning to the role after a 10-year absence, but just picks up right where he left off and gives a terrific performance. Shatner has often been underrated as an actor, and even ridiculed by some fans and critics. He does have a unique acting style of making dramatic pauses in the middle of his dialogue.
That's Spock. Damn him. Bring him back here. No, wait. Get a fix on his position.
But he does it well, and I wouldn't have it any other way. This guy is just so cool, and has always been a great leading man in my opinion. Kirk getting his command back from Captain Decker is a subplot in the movie that adds dramatic tension.
You personally are assuming command?
Yeah.
May I ask why?
My experience. 5 years out there dealing with unknowns like this. My familiarity with the Enterprise. It's cruel.
Admiral, this is an almost totally new Enterprise. You don't know her a tenth as well as I do.
I've seen some argue that this subplot doesn't really have a resolution, and the two characters just act nicer to each other as the movie goes on. I disagree with that, as by the end of the movie, Decker realises his destiny lies elsewhere, leaving Kirk where he should be, in the captain's chair of the Enterprise. By the way, one scene that got a big laugh out of the audience I saw it with is where Kirk meets Ilia.
Lieutenant Ilia, reporting for duty, sir.
Welcome aboard, Lieutenant.
My oath of celibacy is on record, Captain. May I assume my duties?
By all means.
It's really weird that she would say that to the captain of the ship on her first day. Maybe she knows Kirk's reputation as a ladies' man. Leonard Nimoy plays Spock. Nimoy was not originally going to be part of this film due to his issue with unpaid royalties from the franchise. After realising that Star Trek without Nimoy would be like buying a car without wheels, Robert Wise convinced the studio to pay him his due, and Nimoy joined the film at the 11th hour. Spock's character arc in this movie is actually very similar to V'ger. Both are trying to find who they really are, and what they are meant to be.
This simple feeling is beyond V'ger's comprehension. It's asking questions.
What questions?
Is this all that I am? Is there nothing more?
Spock has always appeared somewhat emotionless in the original series, but a key scene of the director's edition, and I can't believe it was ever cut out, is where Spock cries as he identifies with V'ger.
Not for us.
No, Captain, not for us. For V'ger. I weep for V'ger as I would for a brother.
This may be one of the most important Spock scenes in the entire franchise, and as a result, Spock is less stoic and humorless by the end of the film, as he's finally made peace with himself. You can see Nimoy carried us through with his performance in the next movie, which I'll talk about when I get to that review. Deforest Kelley plays Dr. McCoy, and along with Shatner's Kirk and Nimoy's Spock, completes what many fans of the franchise consider the big three of Star Trek. As far as I'm concerned, Kirk, Spock and McCoy are the foundation that Star Trek is built on. What I've always enjoyed about Dr. McCoy is that he's extremely likeable and adds a lot of humour, despite the fact that he's actually a bit of a racist.
Your pulse is 242. Your blood pressure is practically non-existent. Assuming you call that green stuff in your veins blood.
The readings are perfectly normal for me, Doctor, thank you. And as for my anatomy being different from yours, I am delighted.
In a movie that has often been described as too serious and pretentious for its own good, McCoy provides some welcome comic relief.
Spock, this child is about to wipe out every living thing on Earth. Now, what do you suggest we do? Spank it.
As far as new director's edition changes, visually the whole film has been restored, remastered and upgraded to 4K resolution. There are several brand new visual effects additions, such as Earth being seen in the background when the Enterprise leaves space dock. There are also new upgraded effect shots of V'ger as it approaches Earth orbit during the climax. Some of the best new additions in the previous director's cut are small character moments, which are wisely kept here. Some of my favourites are the aforementioned Spock scene, Kirk planning to self-destruct the ship if the mission to negotiate with V'ger fails, the bridge crew discussing how glad they are that Kirk is back. What really improves the movie though is the editing, what they actually cut from the movie, like characters speaking dialogue that points out the blatantly obvious, and some new sound effects. Now this movie is an acquired taste and not for everyone. If it's action you're looking for, this is not the movie where you're going to find it. While the movie has a lot of visual spectacle, it's a thinking person's science fiction movie, and there are no fight scenes or big space battles with the Enterprise. The movie is long, and some may find the extended spaceflight scenes, especially the Enterprise's journey over the V'ger ship, very tiresome. Even though in this edition it's been cut down quite a bit. Also, it can't be ignored that the plot of this movie is very similar to an original series episode called The Changeling. Overall though, this new director's edition of Star Trek the Motion Picture is the best possible version of this movie. If you've never seen it before, this is the version to watch. It's the most cinematic of the original Star Trek movies. And that is it for my review of Star Trek the Motion Picture Director's Edition. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, share with your friends, click the bell for notifications, and let me know in the comments what your favourite Star Trek movie is. I hope you all look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.